Tell me how you got involved in the war.
Well, I was working in Pittsburgh in American Optical Corporation. They had branches in different cities, and I was working in the Pittsburgh branch, and it was also a regional air headquarters too. Mm-hmm. And I got my draft notice, and it said report so-and-so date, and the company says, wait a minute, we ain't got time to train somebody that quick. So I got a 6 months deferment.
Oh.
So after the 6 month deferment, they still hadn't trained anybody, but the government said, come join us. So I was drafted.
When you received your greetings letter,
Yeah.
what was your reaction?
I don't know. I don't remember anything. I mean, I thought, well, I don't like this, but I got to do it. And I hadn't been living at home very long. I had gone to seminary from 1945 to 1950. So I did my high school education in the seminary. I was studying to be a priest, and Latin got me. So I left after the first year of college. So I actually, 53 was only 3 years after I quit going to college. So I was sent to Fort Meade, Maryland, where they give you a test for what aptitude you have, what you could be good at and everything. And from there, I don't remember how, I think they took us by train to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And there I took basic training in combat engineer, advanced in training in combat engineer, and then a leader's course at combat engineers. Got done with that, and they sent me home for 2 weeks, and then got my first airplane ride. I flew from Pittsburgh to south of San Francisco, and then we flew up to San Francisco and got on a bus and took us to the boat in the harbor there, and then across the ocean. Mm-hmm. Beautiful trip south of the Hawaiian Islands, and that ocean was like a mirror. And we got to Japan, got off the boat. They took all of our gear off of us and gave us new gear and gave us a rifle, which we got to shoot 3 times, and that was it. Stripped it on, put it in a duffel bag with our clothing. And then we went by the same boat over to Busan, Korea. Mm-hmm. Disembarked there, and they put us on a train. And they put a guard at each end of the train with a rifle, no ammunition. No one told them anybody. But the train then went through Busan, and what was most interesting to me is all these people, refugees from the northern part of the country, were living in cardboard houses along the railroad tracks, but they all had electricity because they had the electric from the train tracks and all that. Yeah. So we started going up through the peninsula there, and got up near where the line was, and we could hear faintly in the background artillery. And then we got up, the train tracks ended, and we got off, and they had a big bunch of trucks there, and everybody grouped around, and they said, okay, we're going to call your name and tell you which truck to go to, and you'll be assigned, they'll tell you what you're assigned to. So they went through the whole trains. I guess there was about 300, 400 guys. And they were all assigned, and there was 5 of us left over, didn't get called. So they says, the 5 of you go over here to the service company truck, and they'll take you to the service company. So we were assigned to the 3rd Division, 7th Regiment Service Company. Mm-hmm. So I get over there, and what am I going to do in a service company? So it had a very large motor pool. It had they did all the motor trafficking from there for the whole regiment. So we found out the 5 guys that we were assigned to the post office, at regimental post office, and that was going to be my job for while I was in Korea. Mm-hmm. But there was a little catch to it. I was assigned not to the 7th Regiment, I was assigned to the 3rd Division and loaned to the 7th Regiment. So that meant I didn't have to do any of the guard duty or KP or anything like that. So I was, boy, that's great. So the first thing after we got a little bit oriented there, they sent me down to the 3rd Division headquarters, and there they taught me how to write money orders for the post office. So I think I was there for 3 days. I don't remember what the heck they were teaching us or something, but writing money orders isn't very complicated. It's like writing a check. So we arrived in Korea the first week of July. I don't know what date it was, and the armistice was signed on the 27th of July of 1953. So we knew that it was going to be over pretty soon. So while I was at the division for the training, we were at mess, and a non-com came in and he says, anybody from triple nickel, that's artillery, you're supposed to report back to your camp immediately, and they're going to explain why you're there. So what it was the commander of the artillery decided rather than haul all the ammunition back to where they were going to be stationed, they were going to use it. They would have less to carry. So from about 2 o'clock on, they started firing artillery, and it was going over top of us. And sooner or later, somebody decided, well, we better fire back. So the North Koreans started firing back. So that entitled me to combat pay for the July. And so in Korea, you didn't have to pay United States taxes, and you got combat pay, and you got overseas pay. So PFC or private, you were making pretty good money, and you didn't have anything to spend it on. So when it came time to write money orders, I'd go to each company, and the post office or the postal clerk in the company would come with orders for money orders. And the first company I went to, I wrote $100,000 from one company. And that amazed me, that much was being sent back or being spent by money orders. So after I got the money, there was no place to store the money at the company or the regiment, so we had to get a Jeep and go down to the division and turn it in there and then come back. And that let me have a sidearm, which I never had to carry except when I'm in a Jeep. So I would get always some goofball because everybody else had the important jobs to do. So I'd get somebody, and one time we were going down there, and there was a big, long concrete bridge was sort of half round, and we were going across that bridge, and the 2.5-ton truck was coming towards us, and we were going towards it. And I thought, I hope this guy stops, but he didn't. He kept on going, and when he went by, I said, boy, I didn't think we were going to squeeze through there. And he says, neither did I. I shut my eyes and hoped. So that was one of my ventures there. And so after the armistice was signed, they decided to move the regiment to another place. And that was our first move. And it was a very small move, primarily just picking up the personal stuff and moving off. But what happened was there were Quonset huts built where they had mess hall or something, offices, some things like that. The night before we were supposed to move into this other company, the mess hall burnt down in that area. So we had to eat outside for about a month while they built another one. In my experiences there in Korea were very different from what they probably are in the United States. We would send truck down to the division APO, the Army Post Office, and pick up the mail for our regiment, bring it back, and then we'd sort the mail overnight for the company clerks to come in the morning and pick up. So we usually sent a 2.5 ton truck down or 3/4 ton truck, depending upon whatever they tell us to bring. And except on Christmas time, weeks before Christmas, we'd take a 2.5 ton truck with a trailer on it, and usually send 3 trucks down, and they'd come back with full loads of mail in there. And it would take us almost a whole day and a half to sort it out, and then we'd start all over again because we have a new load. And we had one company in our division, or our regiment, that was adopted by Des Moines, Iowa. So we'd get big bags of goodies for those troops in that company. And one other advantage we had, we got to see Playboy before anybody else did, because we had to go through it to sort them. There was different things going on that we enjoyed. Mm-hmm. So one day I was at mess, and the sergeant came in and he says, we need a couple volunteers. Well, you don't volunteer in the Army. But I thought, well, what could it be? I said, I'll volunteer. He says, well, it's an assistant truck driver. I says, well, I don't have a license. He says, you don't need it for that. So we went on the truck, and it was an old World War II 2.5 ton truck, which had been picked up by a Japanese company off the different islands that we had the World War II combat on. And they picked up the damaged and disregarded trucks and things like that, took them back to Japan and rebuilt them. Mm. So they were using those as a fill-in for the equipment after the war started, because they weren't ready for another war. And these 2.5 ton trucks had a 4-wheel drive on them, but the driver he would be shifting the gears and pushing the clutch, and the assistant driver would have to pull the 4-wheel shift into gear. So that was my job. So the first place we went to was a Korean company. We picked up the troops from the Korean company and stacked them inside. There was no place they had a stand in the back of the truck because there was no seats on these trucks. And they put them in there, and the lieutenant from the company was sitting in my seat, and I went up, oh no, you got to go in the back. So he got in there, much to his dismay. And we took him up and dropped him off, and we got to see how the Korean company worked and everything. They had these whole pits dug where they put kimchi in to cure, and they had a lot of rice around and that. And so then the guy who was running the convoy says, you got another assignment, go to this tank company and they'll tell you what to do. So we went to the tank company, and they picked up a big wooden crate which had a dozer blade for attaching to the front of a tank. And it just fit on the 2.5 ton truck. And it was about 4 or 5 feet above us in the back. And in Korea, they had a lot of telephone lines crisscrossing the roads, but they weren't very high up. So I had to get out, grab the telephone lines, and walk them off the back of the truck every time we came to one. And we were following the tanks, which were on a dirt road, and we were eating all their dust. So it wasn't fun, but anyhow, it was adventurous. And the convoy captain came back, and he says, we're going to have to get all of our troops together here because we're spread out. He says, you guys just go ahead and up, and told us where to go. Went to their new location, and we went in there, and the sergeant came out, and he says, how do they expect me to get that blade off there? I ain't got no crane. And another guy come over, and he says, let's back it up that mound over there and put a winch on it and pull it off. So they did. And when the box got to the point where there was more weight off the truck than on the truck, the front end went up. And we stood there looking at it, and it went bonk and broke right in half right behind the seats where we were sitting. So we went over and looked at it. They had welded the frame together right behind us. So they said, well, just leave it here. We'll take care of it. So we hitchhiked back to our company, went into the motor pool, and the sergeant says, I didn't hear you guys coming in. He says, well, you ain't going to hear that one anymore. He said, what happened? We told him what happened. He says, great, that's wonderful. So that was one of my big adventures in Korea.
So you did not have to get into the war zone then?
No, no. I saw some parts of it, but not very much of it. I have no idea where I was. I tried to find on the maps. Well, most of the maps you get now for Korea are in Korean. So I didn't recognize any names, and where we were at was a demilitarized zone, so there was no villages or anything.
When you drive up I-69 and see the sign that says 38th parallel,
Yeah.
do you have any reaction to that?
No, not really, but I know, I think we were probably a little bit north of the 38th parallel, because some parts of it, we went north of it and they went south of it, and that's the way it ended.
Now, when the Korean veterans came home
Yeah.
following the armistice, it's been said that they did not get the kind of greetings that they should have.
There really was no greetings. I mean, we came back on a different route coming back. We did the same thing. We went to Japan, got on a bigger ship, and it went up along the Alaskan line down to Spokane, and that's where we got off the boat there. And we were I think we were 1 or 2 days out from there, and they came on the speaker in their boat, and they said, we're going back a little bit because a Russian trawler has had 2 sailors fall down the hatch, and both have both legs broken. So we're going to pick them up and take them into Washington, and they'll be taken care of there. So it was something we all got to go up on deck and watch them put the boat over, and we were in the high seas. They were up here, and then they were down here, and then they were up there, and they went over, and our ship went sideways to calm the water down. But as soon as they got away from that, they would disappear. I mean, and they'd be gone. So they picked them up and brought them on. So when we got back on landfall, they took them to the hospital.
In retrospect, how do you feel about your service?
I enjoyed it. When I went to Korea, I weighed 160 something, 68 something like that. When I left, 195. Not from muscle buildup, I'll tell you that.
They bulk you up, though, don't they?
Yeah. But the service company was great because, besides the mail, the next tent over was a ration breakdown where they had all the rations for the whole regiment, and then they had the other side of it. They had the grave registration where they picked up bodies and identified them and took care of them, and they had an ammunition dump back in the little bit off to the side. And I actually volunteered one time for guard duty, which is nothing. They take your rifle and give you a shotgun. So we're walking to guard duty, and we were walking towards each other. One guy was coming towards me, and I was going towards him, right by the ammunition depot. And all of a sudden, we both heard something in between us, and we said, "What was that?" And we both yelled out, "Who's there?" Nobody answered, and kept on going towards each other. And this animal come out of the ditch. It was about twice the size of my dog. And I don't know what it was, but anyhow, it decided to come after me. There I am with a rifle. What do you think I did? I hauled off and kicked it, killed it with one kick.
You were honored as part of the honor flight.
Honor flight, yes.
What did you think of the honor flight?
I had been to the honor flight, return flight, where they do the parade through the airport 2 times. I knew somebody who was on the flight, the second one. The first one, I don't know why I went to that one. Anyhow, I knew somebody who was on that one, and I saw him coming back. He was in a wheelchair, and he died shortly after that. And I thought that was a great idea. I put in an application, and the next flight I got on, so I went on number 6 flight, and it was my son was my guardian, and we enjoyed every bit of the trip. The flight down is about an hour, 15, 20 minutes, depending on the traffic at Washington. And then you get on a bus. The first place we went to was the World War II Memorial, which I had never seen. I'd seen all the other ones before. Anyhow, the World War II Memorial was just breathtaking to see that. And they took our group picture there. They had a big long line of the veteran and guardian and veteran and guardian. So they had a long line because there are 80-some people go on each flight. So that meant 160 people they had to get in the picture. And we were lining up there, and a kid came down, and he started shaking hands with the veterans and going down the line. And there we asked him where he was from, and he said, Jasper. It turned out their class was there for a class trip, and he got to see us there. So that was the first place we went to. And the second place was the bus stop. It was at the Lincoln Memorial, where you could see the Lincoln Memorial, the Korean Memorial, and the Vietnam Memorial. And we were told to be back at the bus at a certain time, and we got done, and we still had about 45 minutes to go. So my son and I walked on to Martin Luther King and the FDR Memorial, got to see that. From there, we went to the Air Force Memorial, which I had never seen too. And in between, we drove around and went to Arlington Cemetery, saw the Marine Iwo Jima Memorial, and then we went to see the changing of the guard, and then the flight home, and the parade was terrific. So that was flight 6, and the last flight was 17, so I've been to all their return flights since then, from all 9 flights since I went. And I've been volunteered since I went. I volunteer for anything they went. And the volunteering is wonderful. I think they must have about 200 people signed up for volunteers. And they treat us wonderful too. We always have meals, which the people donate. Come on up here, Miley. Well, when I come back, come on. When I come back from Korea, like you said, there was no praise or anything. You know, it just that went back to Fort Meade. They gave me my $300 discharge pay. I got on a bus and went home to Pittsburgh, and went out and bought a car. I bought a 1947 Plymouth Coupe with a manual shift, learned how to drive it and took my test and passed it. And then I said to my mom, I'm going to go visit up to Lake Erie. I want to see Lake Erie. Never been past Titusville, Pennsylvania is the furthest north I had ever been then. Mm-hmm. So we went up left and got a north side of Pittsburgh, and I couldn't find my way out of Pittsburgh. I had never been, driving before, so I couldn't come back home. My mother says, well, that was a quick trip. And I said, well, I couldn't find my way out.
Well, thank you very much. It's been very, very enjoyable talking with you. And again, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.